It was Christmas Day, 1863, and America was embroiled in the worst conflict in its history, the Civil War, the war between the states. Before it ended, 620,000 men would be killed in the fighting, millions more wounded. Just a few months prior to that Christmas Day, 51,000 had died in one single battle in Gettysburg. America was sharply divided between the blue states and the gray states. You thought I was going to say red. Our nation was divided politically, geographically, racially, culturally, economically, pretty much every way it could be divided. Kind of sounds a lot like today. Family members literally fought against each other in the bloodiest war in American history. Well, on that Christmas Day in 1863, one of the most beloved poets in American history, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, was in a state of deep depression. Less than a month earlier, his oldest son Charles had been seriously wounded in a battle which, for all practical purposes, left him paralyzed. 2 years earlier, his wife Fanny had burned to death when her dress caught on fire. Longfellow himself was seriously injured as he tried to put the fire out, and she literally died in his arms. Added to that was the fact that Longfellow was a devout abolitionist, strongly opposed to slavery. And all the war, witnessing the atrocities of the war just broke his heart. And so as he sat there on that Christmas Day in 1863, looking out the window of his home in Cambridge, Massachusetts, he was in a state of despair. But then something happened. A miracle happened. A real, true Christmas miracle, and everything changed in an instant. He heard the church bells ringing. And he wrote, and God used those church bells to change his heart, and he wrote the words to the song that we just heard. I heard the bells on Christmas Day. That's the story behind that song. God spoke to Longfellow through those church bells, just as he speaks to us in many ways today. And he reminded him of the big picture. He reminded him of the real peace that the baby in the manger brought. That God has not abandoned us. He is not dead. He is not asleep. The Prince of Peace is alive. And he promises to bring us peace even in the midst of the bloodiest war we've ever experienced, even in the midst of horrible personal tragedy that Longfellow was going through. He found the peace of God there. You see, it's a peace that passes understanding. It's a peace that transcends all human feelings and emotions and experiences and circumstances. It's peace with God. You know, the actual words to the angel, the thing that bothered Longfellow the most, actually, as he sat at his home earlier, was the words of the angel to the shepherds when he said, "Peace on earth, goodwill to men." And Longfellow, as he sat there, had thought, there is no peace on earth. The war mocks that promise from God. But what Longfellow discovered was there's a greater, deeper peace with God, even in the midst of that. In fact, the actual words of the angel were, on earth, peace among those with whom God is well pleased. Peace with God. You see, if Jesus came to this world to end all war and all human suffering, then I think we'd have to agree he did a pretty lousy job. But that wasn't the reason he came. Because the world offers peace in circumstances. The world says, let's get rid of war, let's get rid of suffering, then we can have peace. And Jesus says, no, I'm giving you peace even in the midst of that. In John chapter 14 and verse 27, shortly before he died, Jesus said these words to his followers. He said, I am leaving you with a gift, peace of mind and peace of heart. And my peace isn't like the peace of the world that the world offers. So don't be troubled or afraid. Do you catch that? Jesus said, my peace isn't like the peace of the world. It's different. And so, Jesus brought real peace, because the world defines peace as being absence of conflict. Jesus says, no, my peace is in the midst of conflict. You know, the peace of the world is circumstantial. The peace of the world says, as long as, you got enough money, as long as people like you, as long as you continue to be successful, all right, there it is. But what happens when those things quit working for you? What happens when you don't have, lots of money and lots of success, and maybe you're not so popular with people? The peace of the world is going to let you down. This time of year, don't you love Christmas movies? I mean, you got to watch It's a Wonderful Life at least once every Christmas. I think that's a law, isn't it, somewhere? So since I'm mentioning Christmas movies, I'll give you a little Christmas trivia here. Not Christmas trivia, movie trivia. Does anybody know who the only actress is to ever win an Academy Award for Best Actress in consecutive years? Now, the wheels are spinning. You're thinking Elizabeth Taylor, Katharine Hepburn, Meryl Streep. Well, I'm going to tell you, you've probably never heard of her before. It was Louise Reiner. And she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, the Oscar, in 1937 and 1938. Now, the reason you've never heard of her, she was only in Hollywood for 3 years. 3 years of making movies, and she won the Oscar for Best Actress 2 of those years. That's a pretty awesome record. But her personal life was in shambles. In fact, the second time she won the Academy Award, she walked around the lobby of the Biltmore Hotel where the Academy Awards were being held, sobbing openly. And then she put a fake smile on her face, walked on stage, received her Oscar, but it meant nothing to her. Shortly after that, she went to Louis Mayer, the head of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and said, I quit. And he tried to intimidate her. He said, you can't quit, Louise. We made you. To which she said, no, Mr. Mayer, God made me. And with those words, she walked away from what could have been perhaps the most illustrious film career in history. But here's the thing. She found the peace that Jesus offers. And she died recently, having lived a life that really the peace of Jesus provides. The peace that we so desperately long for cannot be found in fame and success. It can't be found in a bottle. It can't be found in the arms of another person. It can't be found in anything this world offers, but it can be found in Jesus. He is the Prince of Peace. And we desperately need the Prince of Peace in our world today. Because this past year in our world, we've experienced a lot of turmoil and a lot of conflict, haven't we? But we have a choice. Like Longfellow, we can embrace the peace that Jesus offers, or we can continue to pursue the elusive peace of the world. Jesus, the Prince of Peace, is the only one with the answer, as Longfellow discovered. You know, the night that Jesus was born, there wasn't a lot of peace in the natural realm, externally. The Roman Empire ruled the world, and although Rome proclaimed Pax Romana, Roman peace, their peace basically boiled down to 3 words: submit or die. On a personal level, Mary and Joseph didn't have a lot of peace, did they? Externally, Mary had been told 9 months earlier that she would give birth to the Son of God, even though she was a virgin, how would you like to have to explain that to your parents? Or to the people in your hometown, or to your fiance Joseph? Hey, I'm really still a virgin. This is God. This is the Son of God I'm carrying. A lot of stress, a lot of conflict, a lot of turmoil. And then they travel to Bethlehem. Things don't get much better, do they? Because all of a sudden it's time for her to give birth. And there's no place to do it. There's no place to have the baby. And she ends up giving birth to the Son of God in a barn with a bunch of smelly animals being the only ones in the delivery room. A lot of conflict. It was hectic. It was chaotic. But it was the perfect environment for the Prince of Peace to be born, because he brings order out of conflict. As Longfellow discovered, as Louise Reiner discovered, and as you and I can discover as well.